Hello and welcome to my shop. My name is Tracy Maxfield and this is Hammer Down Woodworking. Today I'm going to cover, so I did a video over the unboxing of this and setup and use of. That didn't touch on everything, and I've had a lot of questions asked on that video, and that's fine. I really enjoy trying to answer your questions and the feedback that I've got. But I'm going to do I'm doing some through dovetails, and I've already done 2 drawers. I've got 2 more to do. This is going in a vanity in the basement. I don't know if you can see that right there, but those are some nice looking dovetails. Of course, they don't show up on this as well as they do on something that has contrasted wood. This is all made out of red oak, and it's spalted quite a bit. But I've got some wider drawers. These are the 2 top drawers for that vanity, and these right here are going to be the 2 bottom drawers, which are actually a little bit wider, maybe 1.25 inches or something like that wider. I'm going to go through the whole process with very little editing on doing through dovetails. And I'll try to put some timelines maybe on it where you can skip to certain parts if you have any questions, and I hope I don't leave anything out during this process. Now you will need which I've already got the dovetail bit in the router, and you also need your pattern bit, and you'll also need your guide bushings. There should be 2 of them. This 3/4 inch will go with your dovetail bit, and the other one will go with your pattern bit. The first thing I do, your shorter boards, which is your front and back to your drawer, those will be your pin boards, and your dovetails will actually be on your long boards. So I like to set my whole drawer up, and then that way I'm staying oriented as I go along. Now, since I've done this, I have established which is going to be the outside face of all my boards and which is going to be the inside face of all of them. These long boards on the side of your drawer is going to be your tail boards, and I'll do those first. I always do my tails first, and then my pin boards, which the pin boards are these short ones, and I'll pick them up one at a time after I get set up, and I will cut each one of those. Go to the jig, cut it, and then set it back in its place, and grab the next one, so forth, and go all the way through them, and then set up and do the pin boards the same way. And when you start cutting these, try to remember, of course it says it in your manual, but the outside of your pin boards, or not your pin boards, your tail boards, these long ones, the outside surface, whatever you're going to have to the outside, that will face your jig. And when you cut that set of tails, turn it over and cut the other set of tails. The outside of your tail board, let me make sure I'm saying that right, the outside of your tail board faces the jig, and your pin boards, that whatever is the outside, faces away from the jig. It's right the opposite. So you can pick that one up and go straight in, got the outside of your board facing away from the jig. And one of the first things you're going to do as far as setting up this jig is get you some backer boards to go in there, and those need to be the exact same thickness as your stock that you're cutting. They need to be the exact same thickness, and don't necessarily have to lock that down just yet. We're going to do a lot of adjustments to this. First thing I'm going to do is turn this around. The real sharp side, that is for your pins, and this just little U, that shape in the template, that's for your tails. First thing I'm going to do, because this was already set up for those narrower or shallower drawers, so I'm going to be setting this whole thing up for these deeper drawers. First thing you want to do is loosen guide up and just slide it all the way to your left. Pick up your board, and remember, your outside on your tailboard goes toward your jig. We're going to slide it up here, and what we want to do is split the difference on wherever the outside of it falls. You want to split the difference off of that last pin for each side to try to get it as symmetrical as you can. And you can actually, which I did that on my last one, and I'm fixing to do that on this one, but you can take some a caliper or something other and measure and get that very, very close. That is close enough. Now that I've got that, I want to make sure that I'm all the way up. I've already got 2 pieces of scrap in the back of this as sacrificial board. They are the same thickness as my stock that I'm working with. Actually, they're cut-offs from the stock, and it was all planed at the same time, so they're the same thickness, and that's holding this level. I've got another piece of scrap on this side over here holding that side up, and I want to make sure that I am all the way up against this pattern on this side. And now that that is done, I'll just slide this over and tighten it back down, and make sure that it is flush all the way down the side of this board, and make sure that you are touching the template all the way across the top on each one of those. Next thing I'm going to do is push my sacrificial boards. This is actually going to save me tear out, and it gives me a line where this board, the back side of it, actually meets the end of that board. That's my line I want to line my template up on. And I know you probably can't see this because I barely can, but you have 2 lines on this jig. And the one that says tails / box, that line, which is actually the one closest to the middle, you got 2. The one that's closest to the middle of the template. That will be the one that you will want to line up as best as you can on that seam where this board meets your sacrificial board. And right here's what I'm talking about. You got 2 lines on this side, on the tail side of your template. It's this second line, and it says tails box, tail / box right here. That's the one that you will want to line up on that seam in between those boards. And as long as, from what I have found using this thing, and I've used it quite a bit over the last several years since I've had it, what I have found is it really doesn't matter if this, for the tail side, let me say that, for the tail side, it really doesn't matter if this line is lined directly up with that. What you need is to make sure that your bit I mean, you want it as close as possible, but on your pin board is the one that it's really going to count, because your tails are kind of the template for your pins. So don't worry so much if this right here is a fraction or something other off. It will be fine, just long as your tail bit, your dovetail bit, will go all the way through that board, and you get both sides, you cut both sides good and clean. Of course, it's going to go through straight and come straight back out. Excuse me. But so it's going to get both sides. But do your cut in and your cut back out. Go back in and back out. Do a cleanup cut while you're at it, and then that way, when you get to you get all of them done, you're done with that. But just make sure that that dovetail bit does go all the way through and exits out the back side of this board. this setting right here. This is actually, both of these are supposedly set from the factory, and as to what you would drop your bit down for. Mine didn't come set from the factory where you could plunge your router down and stop your bit on that and it'd be right. And it will vary for different thicknesses of wood. Actually, you're supposed to be able to go like this and then lock that down, and that's the way that that's supposed to work. But for different thicknesses of wood, you're going to have to micro adjust some. Let me show you what I mean on that. Well, actually I spoke too soon. That one actually, that time did come out right. And I don't know why it didn't before, but it did this time. But anyway, let me show this to you. Of course, you're not going to be able to see that as well probably as I am, but the lowest portion of this cutter on this dovetail bit is just, I mean, probably 1/28 over deeper than the thickness of this board, which my sacrificial boards back here are the same thickness as my workpiece. So that is about exactly what you want. Why that came out right that time, I have no idea. I have not adjusted this. When I done the other drawers, I lowered it down to that, set it over here to see what my depth was on it, and it was too short. I had 1/8 of an inch before my bit was above the bottom of this sacrificial board, 1/8 of an inch, which was way too short. That would not let my dovetails come out flush with the outside of my pin board. So, but that is what you want. You want that bit to drop down so that it is flush or just protruding slightly, ever so slightly, past the bottom of that sacrificial board. All right, we're all set up. I'm fixing to put my eyes and ears and nose protection on and plug my router up. We're going to cut the tails on the end of this board and then flip it. We're not going to flip it over, but we're going to just flip it end for end and cut the tails on the other side, and then take that out, lay that over here, pick up the next one, do the same thing. And when you do this, keep in mind which side. Your outside of your tail boards, not the pin boards, but the outsides of the tail boards always face the jig. And on your pin boards, the outside always faces away from the jig. And that keeps your end straight. So just make a note of that, keep that in mind. I believe we're good with that. But to turn that over, all you have to do is just loosen that brake up and flip it end for end and go right back up in there again. And make sure that you go all the way over against your stop and that you go all the way up against your template and lock it back down, and you're ready again for your next round. Now that we got all those tail boards cut, let's set up and cut us some pin boards. Alright, now that we got a router bit and bushing changed out, we need to flip this template around 180 degrees. And what I recommend doing, and I've had several responses to my comment about this before on the other video about putting a rubber bushing in that or something to keep it from moving, but I have not done that yet. But what I do is I'll loosen these up real good and slide it this way to get it off of these brass bushings so it doesn't move those, and then turn it around and stick it back down on there favoring the knob side, and then slide it back again the bushing. If it moves it a little bit, don't worry about it, because we're going to purposely readjust this to where they are tighter and keep sliding it back just a little at a time, going looser until we get the fit that we're wanting. If you move this template towards you, it makes your dovetails fit tighter. If you move the template toward the back, it will make them looser. It will give you a looser fit. And I want to tighten mine up just a little bit, not a lot, just a little. That way I know that my pins are going to be too small for my tails, and then I will purposely creep up on that fit with one of them, and when I get that, then I will just go ahead and cut all of them. Alright, we've got our pattern bit in the router. And as far as setting the depth to it, we're going to set it just like we did before. You can come over here and plunge it down, and lock it down, and then check it with your sacrificial board. And hopefully I'll get lucky again. And I did, that's spot on. So, but this time, I'm going to give just a little bit extra attention to that lock holding that plunge down, because it came up on me right in the middle of a cut a minute ago. I'm lucky that didn't damage anything. But on our tail boards, we took the outside of the board and turned it toward the jig. This time on our pin boards, the outside of it goes facing you, away from the jig. So we'll go straight up into it, go flush against the bracket over here, and make sure that you are flush again the template on top, and you're ready to cut. Now with this one, I'm going to cut it, and then I'm going to check it, and then purposely creep. I've got it set to where it is actually going to make the pins too tight, so I'm going to creep up on the fit that I want. As I go through this, I'm going to get this one set to those tails, and just keep, when I get it set, I'll lock it down, and then I will just go ahead and cut all the rest of it. That is just a little bit tight. Not a lot. Actually, I can push it in there just a little bit tighter than I want. I'm going to move the template back just a little bit and loosen that up just a shade, just a little bit. Alright, we want to put this back in here. And make sure we're good, because you don't want to mess up and find that you're not against this bracket, or you're not all the way up against the template. Now what I'm going to do is, it tells you right here on the template, if you move it backwards, it's going to loosen the joint, which we don't want to loosen it a whole lot. And if you bring the template forward, which is what I've already done, it tightens it. we want to loosen it, so I'm going to loosen these up just a little bit and try to turn these at an equal amount, but I'm not going to move the templates yet. I'm going to take these and I'm going to snug them back up and then just watch my template. When it makes contact, watch it crawl backwards, pushing it back with the knobs. And you may not be able to see it move on camera, it's such a small amount, but I've moved it back probably. I mean, I'd be afraid to even throw a measurement on it because it's just such a small amount, but it doesn't take a whole lot to make a big difference. Now we're going to run our pattern bit back across this again and try it, and if we get the fit that we're looking for, then we'll just go ahead and run the other 3 pin boards. Now that's what I'm looking for. I want that just a little bit loose so I've got room for glue in there, but I've still got good contact all the way around. So now we'll go ahead and run the rest of the pin boards. And there's one completely done. How well you can see that. Of course, everything will seal up once it's glued and clamped. But those are some nice looking dovetails. Just a shade bit proud. I'll give you a little bit of sanding to do, but that don't take no time to fix. That's one. Well, we'll not do the other drawer on camera. I'll knock it out just as soon as I finish up here. But I hope you found that helpful. If you like the content, give me a thumbs up. If you have any comments or anything, leave them in the comments. I'll be more than happy to read them and respond to them. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. And until next time, thanks for watching.